You are not alone. You are definitely not alone. Do not give up hope on yourself. Voice out, even when your voice is being diminished. Find your ally. If someone tells you not to speak with anyone, if someone tells you not to reach out to anyone, find that ally. And if you need someone to talk to, please reach out to me because I am your ally.
Welcome to yourbrilliance.com. I'm your host, Amy Waterman. Have you ever been out dancing with your friends and having a great time when some random guy comes up to you and pushes his body against yours and grabs your butt? Well, a better question would be, how many of us haven't had that experience? It's gross, it's shameful, and what can you do about it aside from go somewhere else? Well, there is something you can do about it. You can do the mustache dance. Now, this is a dance that every single woman on earth needs to know. It's the invention of Mila DeChant, a keynote speaker, visionary, and people scientist who's bringing heart back to leadership. One of her missions is to shine a light on toxic environments, whether on the dance floor or in the boardroom, so that we can create a culture where no one gets bullied or shamed. Today, Mila is the founder and CEO of her own company, Chief of Hearts, and the host of Human Becomings, a podcast dedicated to exploring the possibility of becoming limitless. Welcome, Mila.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you for having me today. It's such a pleasure to share the space with you. And you have created such a brilliant platform for so many to express their voice.
So I have a secret ulterior motive for this interview. I want to make the mustache dance go viral. So I want you to talk to me about it. Tell me the story of how you created it.
Sure. So a few years ago, well, it's not a few, over 10 years ago, I went dancing with a bunch of my friends, girlfriends. And when I go dancing, I like to dance alone. I do aggressive movements. I like to just have the whole, not the whole dance floor, but the dance floor to myself and no one comes near me. And we were dancing and just this random bloke comes right by me, behind me and starts humping me, just the hip thrust. And I could feel his sausage on my bum. And it was more like a self-defense where I turned around and I did this aggressive motions. I didn't know where this motions came from. I started clapping and putting a moustache over my mouth and fist pumping and swinging and pointing at him. And at that moment, I felt that this is my empowerment dance. This is my way of gaining back my empowerment and saying, hey, step back. He got pretty perplexed and he actually took a few steps back and he was so offended by it and he called me a Nazi. And that's how the dance came about. I was like, no, this dance is a form of empowerment. It is taking back my power, switching the negative into a positive. Because sometimes when women especially get out to the dance floor or when we do anything bold, right, and that is taken in a very wrong manner. Men especially when you dance, they think, oh, you are inviting it. You're wearing a provocative dress. You are moving your hips in such a way that I want to come and grind on you. No, nothing of that sort of behavior invites any kind of gross, I call it gross kind of behavior or grinding to it. And that's how the dance was born. And I always use that when I go into companies or organizations to train. I break the ice with that because that carries such an in-depth meaning of claiming your voice, your power, your confidence. Tell your story through the mustache dance.
And so, ladies, at the end of this, we're going to give you a link that's going to go to that. So make sure to check it out. But what I really, really love about this, and I love about the way you responded, is that was a toxic situation. It could have gotten quite ugly, but you used humor to remind this guy that you're not just a body. You're actually a real human being that has thoughts and feelings and can actually have your own space. You know, you don't have to, just because you're on the dance floor, you don't have to be pushed up against other people. But what I really noticed about the guy's response to you is that for him, he didn't want to see you as a person. He wanted to see you as a body. And as women, we get reduced to bodies all the time. We get reduced to what we can do for other people. How does this kind of dehumanization play out in other fields?
Yeah, and you mentioned such an important aspect, Amy. You mentioned about what we can do for someone else, right? And we are often looked as bodies, and that translates in every other field that I consciously immerse in or have been in. Take for example, so when I have my own company and I've been in leadership positions during my corporate tenure, and often people see if you are a female, right? They often see, oh, you're just a body. They look at you as, oh, you're a pretty face, or your soft voice, or you dress nicely. And the kind of feedback, positive enforcements that we get is very related to how we look, how we sound, very motherly kind of attributes. It's nothing similar to you are a strong leader, you have a voice, I want to empower your voice, right? So those kind of minute I call it microaggressions at the workplace when they say, oh, you're a lady, so you can take notes. That's a microaggression. That's reducing our voice. That's reducing our identity. That happens on the dance floor too. So that's why I look at that empowerment dance floor and translate it into how does it work in the workplace? How does it work in the community? How are we lit as women? How can I empower someone else by saying, you're not just a body, you're not just a female. Let me give you your voice. You know, if someone speaks over you, let me chat that person who's speaking over you and say, Amy, what did you say? I'm more interested in hearing about your ideas. So it's always about flipping the script. We often think about, I want to empower people. I want to empower people. I'm a great leader. But great leadership and empowerment is not something that you read via books or you watch via YouTube videos. Hey, Mustache Dance, you can watch it. But you know, it's something that you consciously pay attention, and it starts with you. Let it be via a dance, let it be via an act of kindness, let it be via you enabling someone else by saying, hey, stop speaking over that person. Let's listen to what this person has got to offer, even though she or he is an intern, entry level, or a minority, or a female, or a disabled. So that's how I consciously flip the script.
And this isn't the kind of leadership that you've experienced in your past work life. I know that you had been working for a very, very large company when you realized that actually your voice and your humanity was not a value because you were just a cog on the wheel. And if your cog didn't move smoothly, you were out. Do you want to tell us quickly what happened? I know this is it's a pretty dark and difficult story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was with Amazon Web Services. Well, I can speak about them because I'm no longer there. And I'm sharing my experience not to diminish the other end, but to bring awareness to what is going on, how people are being dehumanized, and how our voices through storytelling, through our experience can bring light to it. So I was with Amazon Web Services for 3 years. The first 6 months was fantastic. And then when I transitioned teams, that's when hell broke. I didn't know what real hell is, but to me, that was hell. That was the most depressing moment of my life. For 2.5 years, I endured bullying. I endured dehumanizing acts. I witnessed people demonizing my character, defaming my character. My confidence was stripped away. My identity was tarnished. My ability to speak corroded. My ability to think creatively corroded. I could not recognize the person I had become. I could not recognize the mustache dancer. I could not recognize the Mila, who was the VP of Student Board Development, who was the director of the team. I could not recognize the person because my managers would just verbally, emotionally, and mentally abuse me every single day. by saying you can't speak English, you're not a very good speaker, you are not worthy of the current position of a global program manager, you're only worthy of someone being in the warehouse to pack those packages. So they reduced my work to such a low position, right? And anytime I questioned or challenged them, it was always, I saw the repercussions in a manner that my job title was constantly changed, my job scope constantly changed, my responsibilities constantly changed. And it was like walking on eggshells. I didn't know when I was going to get yelled at. I didn't know what kind of email I was going to get at 4 a.m., at 5 p.m. And I would get dumped with work. I would get work dumped on me at 4 p.m. saying, I need this by COB in 30 minutes time. Or they would give me at 4 p.m. expecting me to finish it at 8 a.m. And sometimes, or most of the times, I would stay up till 12 a.m. or 1 a.m. to finish up works. I worked 16, 18-hour days. And there were times where I would just sit on the table, burst out into tears, crying, having that, resounding words of my manager saying, you're not good enough, you're not part of this team, you're not an integral part of this team at all, you can't do anything, you can't follow instructions, you can't understand simple English. All of these, to hear that for over 2 years really ignited that doubt in me, and to a point where I wake up with anxiety attacks at 2 a.m. crying, and I couldn't take it anymore. I actually stood on top of a building ready to take away my life. And at that moment, there was no one around, Amy, and I heard a voice right beside me, and there was no one around saying stop. At that moment, I received a text from my sister saying, is everything okay? My sister had no clue what I was undergoing. And that was the defining moment for me to walk away from my corporate career, because it was such a dehumanizing environment where I saw my intelligence just defamed. I saw my identity corroded. I saw what other people did to me. And I know people listening out there will say, it's up to you whether you allow it or you don't allow it. But when you are in a situation, it's very equivalent to putting a frog in a pan of water. Not that I've done this to the frogs, but put a frog in a pan of water and you slowly increase the temperature. Will someone notice that the temperature is increasing? They'll only notice it when it's drastically hot. They'll think, oh my God, I'm burning up. Why is this happening to me? And that's exactly what I found myself in that situation. And I wanted so desperately to change that, to flip that script. So I walked away from that career not knowing what I was going to do. Didn't have a job lined up, no savings. And that's why I started my business, Chief of Hearts, wanting to humanize every aspect of the workplace, because we spend 70 to 80% of our awake time per day at the workplace.
So what is so interesting to me about your story is the way it dovetails with stories of women who've been in abusive relationships, because often in an abusive relationship, you go in there wanting to be the best partner you can be. In some ways, you see yourself as almost the employee of your partner. You want to give your partner a good life. You want to make him happy. You want to make sure your relationship is the best you can be. And so you tolerate his behavior, you make excuses for his behavior gets worse, it doesn't seem to register because it was getting there a long way. And you need a wake-up call, and sometimes that wake-up call is when you've been broken. And that's the hard thing. It's very, very hard to wake up just at the beginning when it's just getting a little bit worse. You always think you can save the situation. You think you can make it better. So here's one of the issues. It's, the mustache dance is great, right? We can call out these guys on the dance floor because it's low stakes and we're feeling confident. But when you're talking about a huge company, or maybe, this is your husband and they've been putting you down all that time, you can walk away, which is what you did. But how do you have the courage and the power to call them out on their behavior?
So that was such a difficult time of my life, right? Because I had so much of fear. I had immense fear, and that was an opportunity for me to discover my research on different degrees of fear. But in that moment, I had so much of fear of speaking up, expressing my voice, because I found myself being the child at the age of 10 where I was abused by my teacher, because I was physically abused by my teacher, slapped my hair pulled and slammed against the wall because I was a stupid child. And every time I spoke up, she'd slap me again. And being in that situation reminded me of that child. And I told myself, I'm an adult now. I don't want to be a victim. I want to flip every negativity, because there's always an opportunity in every roadblock, challenge, negativity that happens to us. This is what I did consciously, because I identified what they were doing to me. And I told myself, I am going to do everything in my power to show that I am bringing change to the organization. It was not eye for an eye kind of a behavior, because I identified what they were doing, and I couldn't speak up. Even when I spoke up, it was my voice kept on like being oppressed and oppressed. So I did via actions of my job scope. So I automated a lot of processes for my team, saved $500,000 for them. And I started speaking up. I started being visible in all meetings. And my managers would tell me, you don't need to speak, or they would speak over me. And I would be so afraid, Amy, that, even when you're sitting down, you'll feel weakness in your knees. That's exactly how I felt. But I would speak up saying, no, this is the data. I would always go back to data. I would make sure that I have my voice until to a point where top leadership was seeing my work. And that gave me hope. But what I'm trying to get at is, you don't directly need to speak up to whomever is bullying you. Speak up in an environment where your bully is present. And that's what I did. Your bully is present. Shine through your actions, because sometimes in situations your bullies will paint a picture. You are the one who's a little bit cuckoo over here. And that's what happened to me. Speak in a space where you have got allies in the presence of your bully. Execute to your allies in the presence of your bullies, because it shows strength and courage. You don't need to say, oh, bloody Effie. No. You can respectfully disagree and say, this is what I have been thinking about. This is my perspective. This is why I'm saying this. And then your bullies will disagree with you and will try to put you down in the space of your allies. And what I did was, I respectfully disagree, but I am curious to learn, why are you disagreeing? Why are you dismissing my idea? It puts them in a place in front of other allies where they have to voice out and say why they are dismissing you. And that's how I found my voice. Let it be with a partner, a toxic friend, a toxic colleague, a toxic manager. You need to find a space of allies where someone else who's coming from the third party perspective, where there's no bias and they can see what's going on. And that's what I did, because even my HR managers were not willing to help me. And I was told, sorry, we know your managers, they are not like that. You need to fix it. And when you identify who are not your allies and who your allies are, create that safe space for yourself. Because when you speak up, it gives hope to other people who have become invisible by the actions of bullies.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. So for those of you watching, you're ready to be empowered. You're ready to physically feel and own your space. We have a link for you to go and practice the mustache dance. Just go to yourbrilliance.org/Mila. That's yourbrilliance.org/MILA. Thank you, Mila, for coming on and sharing your story and sharing your advice for people who are in situations like yours. And I wondered if you had any last message you would like to leave our viewers with.
Yes, thank you again, Amy, for inviting me and sharing this space with you. And you're doing such brilliant work by giving voices and illuminating voices. My parting words would be, you are not alone. You are definitely not alone. Do not give up hope on yourself. Voice out, even when your voice is being diminished. Find your ally. If someone tells you not to speak with anyone, if someone tells you not to reach out to anyone, find that ally. And if you need someone to talk to, please reach out to me, because I am your ally.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mila. And thank you out there for watching. We hope to see you again soon. Until then, let your brilliance shine.